Hey everybody, welcome to this month's question of the month, and of course, if you've got a question you want me to answer, go to yoganatomy.com/my question. I'll answer it on video just like I'm going to do today. We love good ones. So this one is from Anuj. Hi David, thanks for giving so much insights on yoga anatomy. You're welcome. I have one issue in my body which is clearly visible in yoga poses. For example, I do downward facing dog or uttanasana or paschimottansana. In all cases, my back is rounded shape. It's not straight. Initially, I was thinking that this issue is because of tight hamstrings. But my hamstrings are not tight because I am able to do supta padangusthasana with 90 degrees. Which muscles is creating problem for me? Some people on internet are saying that this issue is because of latissimus dorsi. I wanted to show my pose, but there's no option to show an image. Sorry, we don't have an upload option. It's true. Please help me understand this. I'll be really thankful. Let's start with the last part first. Latissimus dorsi? I'm totally at a loss there. Not a clue how somebody could talk about your forward bending being caused by your latissimus dorsi. I'm going to call BS on that one. No idea how they got there. Don't know what you've been reading. But if that's what they said, that forward bend is not happening because of latissimus dorsi, stop reading that. That doesn't make any sense. I also want to point out here that there's a flaw in your logic and deduction on you're able to do supta padangusthasana with your leg at 90 degrees, and how that somehow points out that it's not your hamstrings causing problems in other places. It's your hamstrings. In all of these, 90 degrees in supta padangusthasana. Here's the thing to remember. This is kind of important. When you do downward facing dog, uttanasana or paschimottansana, both legs are together, which means you're running into the resistance of the hamstrings on both legs simultaneously. When you do supta padangusthasana, your pelvis is more mobile. One, because you're doing one side. Two, because you're on your back and your feet are not fixed to the floor, and therefore your pelvis is even more free to move. So chances are, if we were looking at it, we would see how your pelvis is tilted and your hips are moving or something to compensate that allows for the feeling of more flexibility in supta padangusthasana. But if we sort of locked you into place in supta padangusthasana, you can try this. Maybe your straight leg with the foot against the wall. Make sure your pelvis is grounded to the floor kind of thing. And you go to pull on it, you'll probably find that it's also quite restricted. Anytime you have rounding of the spine, when you go into forward bend, the most general way to say this is your pelvis is not rotating over the head of the femur, right? It's being held in place, and therefore you see the rounding in the spine because it's compensating for the lack of movement at the hip joint. The most common reason for that pelvis to not rotate is because the hamstrings are tight, because they attach to the sit bone and below the knee, and they prevent the sit bones from pointing upward, which is the same thing as saying pelvis tilting forward over the head of the femur. The other possibility is that the deeper hip muscles, particularly gluteus minimus and medius, are holding tension between the femur and the pelvis. See this a lot in runners who also have tight hamstrings, typically, but let's just use runners. We like to pick on them here at Yoga Anatomy. That can also create a tension between the pelvis and the femur that prevents rotation from happening. And once again, the spine is going to then round in the lower back to compensate for the lack of forward folding. There's nothing in what you wrote that makes me think the problem is not tight hamstrings or potentially the deep gluteals as I just described. Give it time. Maybe practice more frequently or hold those postures more frequently. I don't know how long you've been practicing for, but it's your hamstrings and or your gluteals. I'm not sure I helped in that one, Anuj, but I hope I at least provided some insight into what's going on. If you've got a question you want me to answer, by all means, go to yoganatomy.com/myquestion.